Please help me, I need only 50 subscribers. The morning started like any other, but I had learned long ago that calm surfaces rarely reflect the truth beneath. I had been working in corporate finance for over a decade, building a career that demanded precision, vigilance, and a relentless sense of accountability. My wife, Emily, had always admired that side of me. Or at least I thought she did. We had married young, filled with dreams of stability, travel, and a home that would echo with laughter. But over the last few years, things had quietly shifted. It started with small changes. A missed call here, a whispered excuse there. Emily became distant, preoccupied, more attentive to her phone than to me. I told myself it was work stress, exhaustion, the natural ebb and flow of married life. But deep down, I felt a gnawing unease that refused to be silenced. One evening, I noticed subtle inconsistencies. Unexplained charges, sudden meetings she couldn't quite explain, and a casual comment about helping someone with financial trouble. My heart sank in a way I hadn't expected. I confronted her gently at first, trying to believe in the bond we had shared. "Emily," I said, "is there something you're not telling me?" Her eyes flicked away, a practiced avoidance I had seen in corporate negotiations, the same way people dodge responsibility when cornered. "It's nothing," she replied, dismissive, almost too calm. That calm was a lie, one I recognized instantly. I had spent years reading people, understanding motives hidden behind polished words. Then came the confirmation. Late one night, a call from a mutual acquaintance, careful not to reveal too much, just enough to make the pieces click together. Emily had been seeing someone else, a business associate she had been mentoring. The betrayal was sharp, precise, calculated. And unlike the naive fantasies of most scorned partners, I wasn't going to react with immediate anger or despair. I needed a plan. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about reclaiming control over the life I had built. I began to gather evidence, quietly, without alerting her. Bank statements, emails, receipts, every trace she had left. I understood the law, the financial vulnerabilities, the consequences of exposure. If she thought she could continue her game without consequence, she was about to discover how dangerous a disciplined, methodical man could be when pushed too far. Over the next few weeks, I moved carefully, deliberately, like a strategist setting pieces on a chessboard. Every interaction with Emily was measured. I said only what was necessary, revealed nothing. I watched her, studied her routines, and tracked the flow of her secret world without her ever realizing. Her confidence grew in her perceived invisibility, which only made her more reckless. People who believe they are untouchable leave the most traces, and Emily was no exception. I started with the finances. She had introduced her lover into our shared accounts subtly, funneling money under the guise of business opportunities. I traced every transaction, documented every transfer, and identified their full financial entanglements. It wasn't just about proving the affair. It was about exposing the network of deception she had woven. I found shell companies, unreported partnerships, and unpaid loans. Everything that, when revealed, would crumble under the weight of legal and financial scrutiny. Meanwhile, Emily remained oblivious to the storm brewing behind my calm exterior. At dinner, she would smile, sip her wine, and recount mundane office stories, thinking her secrets were safe. I would nod politely, my mind elsewhere, already planning the moves that would bring her and her lover to justice. I didn't gloat. I didn't react. This wasn't theater. This was precision, patience, and inevitability. One evening, I sent a subtle email, an anonymous tip to the financial auditor who had previously overlooked several discrepancies in her partner's accounts. I crafted it carefully, leaving no fingerprints, only facts and evidence that were impossible to ignore. Within days, investigations were launched, freezes were applied, and phone calls began to come, urgent, panicked, pleading. The balance they had relied on so heavily began to vanish under scrutiny, revealing debts, defaults, and a cascade of financial mismanagement. Emily finally sensed something was wrong. Her usual composure faltered, the carefully constructed mask slipping. She tried to confront me, demanding answers, accusing me of betrayal, of spying, of crossing lines that, in her mind, should have remained sacred. I simply watched. Calm, collected, untouchable. She had underestimated the man she married, the one who had always built, protected, and executed with quiet discipline. Now she was about to understand the full measure of that discipline, and the cost of her betrayal. And the final act was coming, one that would leave no doubt about who had power, and who had been foolish enough to believe otherwise. The day the auditors arrived at her office, Emily's carefully curated world began to collapse. The man she thought was untouchable, the partner she believed would never see through her deception, had orchestrated the unraveling. Calls came from lawyers, accountants, and bank officials, each delivering news more devastating than the last. Her lover, once confident and smug, was frozen with disbelief, unable to grasp how the empire they had built on lies could crumble overnight. Emily rushed home that evening, frantic, her composure gone. Her eyes, once so full of certainty, now darted nervously around the room. "Mark, what's happening?" "You can't," she stammered. "I didn't answer." I let the silence speak. Every unspoken word carried the weight of her betrayal, every pause a mirror reflecting her miscalculations. She had believed she could manipulate, cheat, and maintain a facade. She had been wrong. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal notices, frozen accounts, and desperate calls from her lover. Bankruptcy proceedings were initiated, and the people who had laughed and plotted behind my back were suddenly scrambling to salvage what remained. I watched from a distance, not out of cruelty, but because justice had finally taken its course. Emily's arrogance had blinded her. Her choices had consequences, and those consequences were now unavoidable. And then the moment of clarity. Emily came to me one night, her voice trembling, her defenses gone. I didn't think it would end like this," she whispered. I looked at her, unflinching, remembering the nights of quiet disappointment, the subtle betrayals, the cold distance she had placed between us. "You underestimated me," I said simply. No anger, no malice, just truth. She nodded, understanding fully, though it was far too late to undo the damage. In the aftermath, life returned to a new normal. I didn't gloat, I didn't celebrate. Justice had been served quietly, methodically, and that was enough. Emily had learned, the hard way, that actions have consequences, that deception comes with a price, and that underestimating someone who builds and protects their life with precision is the gravest mistake one can make. As I sat in my study one evening, sipping a glass of whiskey and reviewing the final documents, I felt a strange sense of closure. Betrayal had tested me, but it had also reaffirmed my principles, my patience, and my capacity for measured action. In the end, the lesson was simple. Power is quiet, justice is deliberate, and some debts are meant to be paid in full.